Yeah, I mean, I enjoyed it very much. If you're watching this review on YouTube, incidentally, and you want the setup, just go back and watch the interview, which will also be on the feed, rather than me just repeating everything that Mark Gatiss just said to set it up. Other than obviously, it's about a bookshop owner, post-war London. His name is Book. He owns a bookstore. The gag at the beginning is Book apostrophe S, because it's books. And he's referred to all the time as Book, and there we go. And he is in a lavender marriage. So part of the story is about the independent life that he and his wife lead. They work together, and they love each other in as much as they have huge affection for each other, but they also lead their own separate lives. So partly it's about being a gay man in that period. And there is an overarching narrative that goes over the episodes. Each episode is half of one of the stories. So there's 6 episodes, which there's 3 different stories are investigated. But there is an overarching story about the young man who appears at the beginning, and he's been in prison, and obviously there has been some shenanigans to get him to come and work at the bookshop. And the thing is, why are they interested in him? Why is he important? And during the course of the story, we learn about Book's own backstory. And as I was saying in the interview, there's a kind of brief encounter thing going on there. I mean, I watched all 6 of them in a binge, and that's, it's the best part, 5 or 6 hours. And I really enjoyed it. Partly I enjoyed it because I like the idea of the character. I like the idea of the person whose entire when the young man arrives at the bookshop appears to be, what was the word you used? A sluttery,
which is a Victorian word which didn't catch on to describe a chaotic room, but a room out of which it's creative chaos.
But what the young man, just Jack, does then is to start to organize it, and he's immediately told, stop organizing it. It is organized, and it is organized within the mind of Book. Book knows where everything is, but all the things are connected through these very sort of vague connections that only make sense to him. And it reminded me of that thing I said before that I thought it was in Fever Pitch, but it's not. It's in High Fidelity, the Nick Hornby thing, in which there's a bit in which the narrator rearranges his entire record collection in the order that he bought the records. So it is a system that only he understands. And the whole point about Book is that he's fascinated by detail, which of course is a classic whodunit detective thing. There's an awful lot of old-fashioned getting everybody together in the drawing room and saying, and now this happened, and then this happened, and this happened, although it's the program is self-referential about it. There is some very, very I mean, put it this way, if you were ever with any of these people and somebody gave you a drink, you wouldn't take it, because the chances are it's poisoned. It's that kind of, the poisonings are many. But I just thought it was a very clever amalgam of a sort of old-fashioned, sort of, it was Mark, I think, was saying, sort of Wednesday afternoon crime drama, bolted onto a much more modern story about relationships, about sexuality, about love and loss, but all these things happening in the same world. And I should tell you that in the final episode of the first series, in episode 6, I cried, and I found the scene that I referred to as the brief encounter scene incredibly moving. And I thought, well, that's really clever, because basically it's got this sort of slightly pottering music, and it's got this really lovely animated title sequence that tells you, this is nice, this is jolly, it's fun, people getting killed all over the place, but it's not distressing. Yeah, it's very much generic, but there is underneath it something which is rather more surprising, which is the story of why Book is who he is and how he got to this place, and the mystery of what his relationship to, well, firstly to Trotty is, and that's his wife, and what his relationship to Jack is, and what his relationship also is to this sort of sinister element that comes in at the very beginning, in which he meets somebody on a park bench wearing a trilby.
Tim McInerney.
I mean, there isn't scenery, but he's, if there was, he'd be chimming it wonderfully, doing the kind of he says, we want you to do this. And Book says, I don't do that anymore. I just run a bookstore. And then he says in this very sort of sinister way, effectively, you've got a nice setup. It would be a shame if anything happened to it. Yes. So, I mean, I really enjoyed it. I found it really, I don't want to say cozy, because it's not cozy, because actually the story about the love and loss is very interesting and very, very modern. But there is something about it that it feels like a comfortable piece of clothing, and I loved being in the world of it. I really, really liked being in the world of it with those characters, and I love the central character, who is this person who's pernickety about detail and is constantly grammatically correcting people. I mean, I can't imagine why that would appeal to me at all.
Not at all. A small, respectful round of applause to whoever it was who. Now, I associate the phrase lavender wedding and lavender marriage with my grandmother.
All right.
Now, I suspect this is another one of the fake memories, and she never said it, because why would she talk? Anyway, I don't. But it is certain, when you think of the phraseology, particularly what it's describing, so much of the terminology from back in the day would be disrespectful and certainly not used now. But it's actually the perfect phrase to describe the situation that Book finds himself in. And a lavender wedding and a lavender marriage just is a fantastic phrase. So wherever it came from, whoever thought of it, first of all, and here we go in 2025, and it still feels like the right phrase.
Yes, and let me say significantly, I used it because that's the term that Mark Gatiss used in the interview to describe it. And you're right, it is perfect for the situation as described in the series, which I enjoyed very, very much, and I'm really looking forward to the next one. I really took comfort from it. As I said, I've had a bit of a stressful few days, which involved signing off this book that I've been writing on, which always drives me mad, and then coming to Munich and then dropping and smashing my computer. So, frankly, the fact that I had pretty much 6 hours of Bookish was a real treat. So, I'm really glad about that.
And you can find it on and Alibi. But let's say Now TV and Sky, just search for it, and you should get it. So before you go, thank you very much indeed for watching this review, but it is only a small part of what we do. Ain't that right, Mark?
A very small part. We do a weekly podcast from which these little tasters are taken when we review all the week's releases.
And we talk through all of those releases in great detail and with great precision.
And Simon interviews the biggest names from those releases.
And we discuss a whole bunch of stuff.
So join us by following our podcasts wherever you get yours. It's the only movie podcast you need. Kermode and Mayo's Take.
Exactly. I entirely agree with Mark. What was it called again?
Kermode and Mayo's Take.
That's very good.